Hi, welcome to the screencast on how to find slope in a table. So here is a worksheet that you have, and we'll be doing a couple problems together, and then you'll be doing some of the problems by yourself, and then you'll be able to check your answers. So let's look at numbers 1 and 2. And remember, we were looking at how to find slope in a graph before, and we said that to find slope in the graph, you find the rise and put it over the run. Well, in a table, it's the same idea. We're going to find the change in y. We're going to find the change in y values, and they're going to go over top the change in x, because slope is a ratio. So let's first find the change in x. So I'm going to choose 2 points in this table. I'll choose these 2 points here. And I'm going to find the change in x. So it's going from -1 to 0. 0 minus -1 is 1. So it's increased by 1. And the change in y. So it's going from 5 to 7. 7 minus 5 is 2. So between these 2 points, x increased 1 and y increased 2. Now if I could pick the other two, I could put 2 more points in this table, like maybe these 2. And I could find the different change in x. So x goes from 1 to 2. So I subtract the one below it, and then the one below it minus the one above it. 2 minus 1 is 1. 11 minus 9 is 2. So for both of these problems, the change in x was 1, and the change in y is 2. So now the slope, I can write it like this. The change in y is going up 2, it's positive 2, and the change in x is 1. So I can leave that as a ratio of 2 to 1, or I can simplify that and say the slope is just 2. Now since it's positive, that means this is increasing. So down here you would write increasing. Anyway, so increasing. Now let's look at example number 2. In example number 2, I'm just going to pick 2 points, like I'll pick these 2. And this can be a little bit tricky because it's negatives, but -2 minus -3 is 1. You're going up 1 when you go from -3 to -2. The y is changing. Again, you always do the bottom number minus the one above it. So 2 minus 5 is -3. Let me pick 2 other points, like these 2. So 1 minus 0 is 1. And -7 minus -4 is -3. 7 negatives, take away 4 negatives is 3 negatives. So if you notice, the numbers are getting smaller. They're decreasing. They're going into the negatives. So then the change in y was -3, and the change in x is 1. So if I'm going to simplify that, I'd write it as just -3. And since the slope is negative, that means the graph would be decreasing. Decreasing. And that's what I would write there, that the graph is decreasing. Let's look at these 2 examples, number 7 and 8. So you'll actually do 3, 4, 5, and 6 on your own. So I'm just jumping over to 7 because it has some fractions, so it looks a little bit more challenging. So let me circle these 2 because these are the 2 points I'm going to use in the table. And I'm going to subtract the x values to find the change in x. So 1 minus 0 is 1. And I'm going to subtract the y values, always putting the bottom number minus this number above it. So 8/5 minus 6/5 is 2/5. So when I write the rise over the run, or the change in y over the change in x, change in y goes on top. The change in y is 2/5. The change in x is 1. Now that's what's called a compound fraction. But since it's over 1, it just simplifies to being 2 over 5. And that's your slope, 2 over 5. That means in order for y to increase 2, x has to increase 5. Here's the last example I'm going to do with you. And I'll just pick 2 points here. I'll pick the ones at the bottom. It doesn't matter which ones I pick. But let's see how much x is going up by. X is increasing. 7 minus 5 is 2. And y is increasing by 5 minus 4 is 1. So we need to remember that the slope is the change in y over the change in x. So the y change goes on top. So that'd be 1 over 2. So the slope is 1/2. In both of these problems here, they're both positive. So even though they're fractions, both of these graphs would be increasing because both of them are positive slope. They're not very steep because they're fractions, but they are increasing. So in general, to find the slope of a line from a table, first you're going to find the change in x by subtracting the values. Next, you will find the change in y by subtracting the y values, always the one below it minus the one above it. Then you're going to write the ratio with the change in y on top, so y goes on top, and the change in x on the bottom. Just like on the graph, how the x-axis is on the bottom of the graph, and when we were learning about unit rate and how we put the whatever label was on the x-axis went on the bottom of the ratio, same thing, so it goes on the bottom. And then you simplify the ratio. And that's it. That's how you find slope from a table. So go ahead and finish that worksheet as practice, and then you'll be able to check your answers.